Hello, everyone. It's Martha Novak, and this is a show called Real Talk with Martha Novak. I'm awful glad to see you today, and we have the rest of our discussion about emotional intelligence today, and I think it's going to be a fun day to hear the rest of this, because, you know, we knock around that phrase, emotional intelligence and emotional immaturity or maturity, and we don't really know what it means. So I think it's really important that we talk about it, certainly relative to consciousness, because it's a part of that. All right. So we're starting today. By the way, this is a live show. The guest call-in number is 347-850-1647. As you know, I'm in rather a remote location, so I actually hope I can get you. If you do choose to call in, do know that that is the number to get you on the air. If you want to just listen to the show, you can dial up, bring up on your computer, Blog Talk Radio or Facebook Live, or go to my website, which is Martha Novak, Novak, a lot of different spellings for that last name, .com, and go into radio shows, and you'll see a button that will say Facebook Live or Blog Talk Radio, and you can punch those and be in to listen, okay? So it's a different number for calling in. Well, let's do a prayer, and then we'll do all of a 20-second briefing on what we've talked about and go right in to the new information, okay? All right, here we go. Dear God, thank you so much for the gifts that we're about to receive from being together, from opening our minds and our hearts and letting ourselves be challenged by new information. We thank you so much, dear God, for the blessings of being united in you under the banner of knowing us, because you are all we are, the light and the dark, and we choose the light. We ask now that we surrender knowing anything, for it's the you through us that knows it all, and the brain and the ego child's mind, and all that information that we've collected in our past is good for us, but it also can be in the way of issues, and issues will block what we need to hear today, okay? So thank you so much, dear God. Get us past those in these 90 minutes and beyond. We thank you so much for this, and we say this prayer in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening to the show today. And so it is. Amen. I had to take a sip of nice, warm tea. I love tea. Okay. So last week and this week, we're taking our information from an article by Kendra Cherry. Now, keep in mind, while I pull up these articles on the internet, I may say something a little different from these articles, because my job is consciousness, and if you go far enough, enlightenment. If we all go far enough, enlightenment. And to bring a great deal of awareness to things, because the pathway to everything is awareness to consciousness to enlightenment. So I love bringing these articles to you, but one of the things I want you to realize is that I'm skewing them slightly. Sometimes I object to some wording. Sometimes I want to go past that and tell you what's going on energetically. But my end result is always a little different from just information, okay? One of the healing things that happen in a show like this is I'm trying to, in a gentle way, loving way, shake up your cells, because you've got the world arranged egoically, and as according to the ego child's mind, and it's limiting you, because ego child's mind tells you these are the ways you can be safe, and it puts limits around you. It is not necessarily the open mind, right? And remember that the open mind is where, and the open system is where a lot of information can come and a lot of information can go out. Things are constantly moving and changing and growing and evolving. And that's what we want. We want to get you less afraid so you can take a chance on being the open system, which is what? The highest self mind. Excuse me. It is very cold outside all of a sudden again. And my nose runs in cold weather, even if I'm sitting in a warm room. And there's nothing I can do to disguise it. So there we are. Okay. By the way, if you notice some bruises on me, which we probably will before the end of the thing if I keep wiping my nose, because I have some bruises around my nose and lips, I went to the dermatologist. And the first thing the dermatologist ever asked me was, are you a real redhead? Well, right now I'm not. But yes, I have always been a real redhead. And so they all go, oh, you've got a bruise like hell. So I have demonstrated it today. I've been wearing it all week. It doesn't look like it's bathing. I tried to cover it up for you. But there's not much I can cover up when we're on the air and when you're seeing me live and in person on Facebook Live. So don't let that alarm you. It was funny, though. My husband said when I came home, he said, you paid good money for that, and I could have done that to you for free. I thought that was kind of funny. It's not funny if it's real, but it's not, of course. All right. So Kendra Cherry's article here is 5 key emotional intelligence skills. And I thought this was really well done. We talked about self-awareness. Remember, that's a really important one because you're going from awareness to consciousness to enlightenment. That's really the journey, right? So if you're one of these people that say, well, I don't have any issues, you're doing yourself a terrible disservice because everybody has them. Everybody has them. You have the world arranged a certain way in your head. One of the things in psychology is that personal psychology sometimes makes, in fact, all the time, if you go deep enough, makes good things bad and bad things good. You know, for example, you can work way too hard. You can give and give and give. You can never be off. You just throw yourself into it. And then you isolate and withdraw because you don't have any more energy. And you say, I'm looking after myself. Well, no, you aren't. You just simply need to get control of this work or go and find an easier one. You simply have to establish some rules so you're not on call, but 8 hours a day. You see? So, we continue to make bad things good and good things bad all our lives until we do work on ourselves. And that job is it falls to me in a private session with you because I point those things out to you. We talk about them. I try to move the energy for you so you will make a better choice for yourself. And you'll realize good is good and things that aren't good are not good. It's really interesting. You know, we have to go back and see why you're working so hard, why you have to get your value that way instead of carrying it intrinsically, you know, things like that. All right, so that's awareness. Please listen to last week's show. Last week was the 20th, March the 20th. Last week's show discussed all this in detail, which I'm not going to do today out of respect for those of you that tuned in last week. All right, so let's go ahead with what we're also covering. I'm talking a little more than I planned to. The second one is self-regulation. Self-regulation. This is the regulation and management of your emotions. Oh, good morning, Vicki. Hello. Good morning, LaRonda. Good morning, Jay. Oh, thank you so much, Vicki. She said last week's show was awesome. I appreciate that very much indeed. Let's hope for the best with this one, okay? Hello, LaRonda. Good morning, darling. I'm so glad to talk to all of you guys. This is so fun. I feel like I know all of you, and I don't. but But you know, I think, and I don't know whether you have ever found this, I'm off the subject a minute, but I can walk into a room and know who I already know, even though I haven't met them. I bet you feel the same way sometimes. You know, you just go, there's some sort of, thank you, big show, thank you, sweetheart. There's some sort of energy. I was trying to explain this to my husband. It's like we radiate some the radio waves, only they're not radio waves. There's some sort of radiation going on in us that we are all interested in consciousness. You just walk into a room and you know who gravitates to you, who is sympathetic to this mindset. It is the most amazing thing. I found another one night before last. It was just amazing. And she was from Ukraine. And we started talking about some of this once our husbands left the room. And it was just amazing. We all felt the same way about everything. So, oh, I think that's a marvelous thing. Jay, thank you. He says, are we born with emotional intelligence or is it learned, experienced over a lifetime? All right. The answer is both. The answer to most questions is usually both. But let me explain this in a lot of detail so we can understand it. And Jay, this is just a great question. Thank you. I would never have thought to address this without your question. We are born the undeveloped whole. As children, we are the undeveloped whole. Now, what do I mean by that? We are born as God's love. We are love. It's really all we are, okay? In the womb, we start collecting things that seem contradictions to that. They're energetic collections. They come to us through the chemicals in our mother's body. And we don't understand them, so we put them aside, right? And then we look for, once we are born, until we're about 7 or 8 years old, we're looking for things that explain and validate those experiences. All right. Now, all of this is still the undeveloped whole. What do we know of love when we're 8 years old? It's just undeveloped. You see, we don't really know what love is until we are in the higher consciousness areas. That's where real love is. Oh, we say we love because we love our partners, and that's wonderful. But it's a lower form of love until we choose to love from the collection of experience that we've learned about love and decide to give it away to that precious somebody. And by the way, get it back from that precious somebody. Do you understand how this works? It's a loop. Good morning, Dahlia. Oh, I'm so glad to see you. And Judy, oh dear, snowy Pennsylvania. You have snow up there? It's cold down here, but we haven't had any snow. I love snow. I'm such a child. Anyway, well, hello, sweetheart. Thank you for all those hearts. That's so dear. Hello, guys. Thank you, Dahlia. I'm so glad to be with all of you today and really have some good questions like Jay has just submitted. If you just tuned in, he said, are we born with emotional intelligence or is it something we have to learn throughout our lives? And I said it's both. The reason it's both is we are born the undeveloped whole. We're nothing but love. We are an undeveloped kind of love. We don't really know what love is until we go into consciousness work and start more and more gaining momentum in the higher self-mind. That's where real love is. That's where we really understand what it is. And so what happens is in the ego child's mind, it is the potential, if you will. As undeveloped love, it is the potential for real, true, heavy-duty, I know what it is, love, you see? Okay, so when we are talking about emotional intelligence, you're born with all the abilities to be emotionally intelligent. They're all there, but they are undeveloped. Everything is undeveloped until we gain consciousness one way or another, you know? Some people take a course like mine, take courses like mine and work with me privately. Some people have to challenge themselves to practically die on Mount Everest and they have spiritual revelations and everything in between, guys. So it is a matter of, there's a mind, an incredible mind that is based in love beyond what you think you know about yourself. You know, I've said all along, it's not what we know about ourselves that lock us up. We can say, oh, I fell off the playground gym when I was 6, and, it's warped my sense of safety ever since. That's not it. Sorry. What's locking us up is most of the time what our ego child's mind is protecting us from remembering, until it's time that our whole self, our ego child's mind and our higher self, deem that we are resilient and smart enough to get through it. Okay? Now, going back to Jay's question. So you've got the undeveloped emotional intelligence. It's there. It's your potential. But you don't start developing it until you face your issues, you find out who you really are, you open up what love could possibly be. I always know that I'm getting somewhere with a client when they call in to me, because most of my sessions are on the phone, and it's because I live in remote North Carolina, by the way, and I have clients all over the North America. And they will sit in front of me and they'll say on the Skype, and they'll say, I don't know what love is. I just don't know. And it's like, well, that's great, because what you're finding out is it's not what you thought it was. And now let's open your mind even more and find out what it really is on a high and spiritual and loving and beneficent level, You often hear me say, God loves you through you at the end of shows. So, make each moment a good one. That's really true. I don't know how to explain it except in better terms than biblically, so forgive me. I don't mean to step on any toes, but in my belief system, whether or not we use the word God or the higher self or whatever we use, it's all God, So I don't think we ought to be afraid of any words. So if you are, and if you don't like certain words that I use, please forgive me, but go with me, because turning your back on some important lessons for all of us, because we don't like a word, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Okay. It makes emotional sense, but not mental sense. I guess I want to say that. Okay, so let's talk about this for just a minute, because the Trinity that was taught was the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. Let's talk about what those things really are, because that's very poetic, isn't it? But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It certainly didn't to me. So until, I went on this journey and got to a certain level, I didn't understand what that Bible was saying to me. I realize now that the Bible is kind of like a ladder. So wherever you are at your understanding of things, I look at, I'm off the subject a little bit, but I think it's important to talk about it. I look at the chapter of Job, remember that? Job, had all these plagues happening to him, and lost his wife, or didn't lose his wife. She was a shrew, I believe. Anyway, one thing after another happened, and it was a terrible day. Okay, Jay, I'll get to that question. He said, do we really know what we are not, who we are in this life? What? Do we really know what we are not, who we really are in life? Is it a programmed illusion that defines who we are? It is, until you work on yourself. Yeah, it's a programmed illusion. That's exactly right. We work from our issues until we find out who we really are. I have a lot of artists that come to me. I'll come back to the Trinity in just a minute. A lot of artists come to me and they say, I'm really afraid to start working with you because my art may change. I may not be as good a musician, as good a painter, good a sculptor, as good a actor, if I investigate myself. And it's like, are you kidding me? You're working from the ego child's mind. That makes you just like everybody else. You don't truly become inspired until you're working from the higher self mind, you see? So it is an unfolding of your authenticity as you age, particularly if you are aware, okay? If you are aware, if you're working on yourself, It is an evolvement of you that is the most natural thing in the world. You see, the ego child's mind and what it does to you is the unnatural state. Don't you understand? And we all learned it at the knee of good authority, our parents. You know, we may have inherited their issues. We may have taken it on because we felt so sorry for them and we're nothing but love, so we'll just carry their burdens. We may create our own burdens. We may, have a real internal world that's all fantasy to cope. We have all sorts of protective mechanisms in place. But if you're going to be conscious, you're going to have to challenge those. It's easy and gentle. I didn't want a program that hurt you. I've been through those acting classes where they literally make you feel like a piece of crap to break your ego down so you can get to an authentic place that we're talking about. The problem is you might do that one night, not the next night when you're playing a part. You might do that and sustain it for the whole part, but you can't sustain it in life. I think it's really important to find out who you are in the most gentle manner, because we go toward pleasure and away from pain. If I put terrible pressure on you, if I am after you, if I make you feel like utter crap, you're going to resist me instead of going with. But if I can tell you the benefits of where you go next and challenge these issues and say, here are the benefits, give me those issues, you do. That's what happens in a private session. It's pretty simplistic, but that's what happens. And then you get away from me and you build up with whatever you've got left. You see, you have a fortress there if you have not worked on yourself. And I come with a wrecking ball, and then I take certain mortar and timber and stones away, but you've still got enough to rebuild, which you do. And you do that, and do that, and do that. That's why consistent work is so important. Until you reach the point where you're building your structure out of toothpicks. You know exactly what you're doing, by the way. You see exactly what you're doing. That's a real important thing, because that's emotional honesty that we talk about. And most people don't even know they're being emotionally dishonest. Do you understand? So it's really important for me to teach all of you to be emotionally honest, at least in our sessions, and to challenge you and show you the ways you're deceiving yourself. And to say, I absolutely validate you. You had a really good reason for doing this, for protecting yourself this way. But you're not in that situation anymore, and it's a new world. And emotional intelligence, Jay says, is self-freedom. And it is. It really is. When an awakening, a huge awakening, the big one, happened to me, I knew I could die right there and everything would be fine. That my life, the good, the bad, the things I was happy about and ashamed of, were all perfect and fit into a jigsaw that led me to that moment of revelation where I realized my entire life was perfect and that there wasn't a mistake and that God had been there all along and would always be. That's the self-freedom you're talking about. Knowing that God is with you, whether you're alive or whether you're on your deathbed or whether you've made a mistake. God's right here in the middle of it all, But we don't know that because we've been reared in a tradition of not knowing who God really is. We have the child's version of God. We think God is, there in the good times and not there in the bad times. We have to open our mind to what God really is. And I say what God really is, not who God really is, because you're the who of God. Back to the Trinity and what I was talking about. The Father is the inner God you are. It's the wisdom in you. You have to mature enough to be your own mother, beneficent, by the way, mother and father. You see? And that's why in a patriotic system they call it the father instead of the mother-father, okay? But that's what it is. You're going to be caring for yourself in a much more sophisticated and loving way as the mother-father part of God. Then you've got the Holy Ghost. Now that confuses a lot of people. Is it a ghost? What is it? All right. Well, God said, I am that I am, not I am who I am. God is energy. God told you in that sentence that it was energy. All right. So the Holy Ghost is all the energy in the whole world that in you. Okay. The tree, the dog at our feet, the lake outside, the blue sky, if it happens to be blue, the snowy day for Judy. God is every flake of that snow. God is everything. God is everything. One thing that confuses us about God is to more or less degrees, you see? And what do I mean by that? Well, there's a low vibrational God that's fear-based. Those are our issues. That's the ego child's mind. But if it wasn't God, darling, you'd never have a chance to reach your highest self mind and your potential, because that's where your potential lies. It's all a perfect system. And don't you think for a minute that I have the answers to all of it. I do not. But I've translated some very confusing concepts into a way of being that I think works for me. And thank you for being interested in it. I hope it works for you. It's worked for a lot of people that I've worked with. Okay? That was a lot of works. Okay. So the Holy Ghost is everything out there that is God, including the people you don't like. They're God too. On the lower vibrational forms, probably. And then we are led to one thing in that Trinity and one thing only, and that is the Son. Now, keep in mind, this was a patriarchal system that created this wording. The Son, they mean Jesus. And the only way to God is through Jesus. Now, I think Jesus was a marvelous, marvelous man and teacher, and I think we're missing who he really was a lot of times by not acknowledging all that. He was also an incredible mystic, an incredible avatar, all right? But he's holding that place for you because that Trinity is a personal one. You see, the only thing that unites the inner, the Father, Mother, with the outer, the Holy Ghost, is the physical experience of you. Don't you think for a minute that you don't matter. You just simply have to wake up to this. And that's what consciousness work is asking you to do, waking up to your role as the place that Jesus held for you, if you want to believe the Christian philosophy. But it's you that's standing there in the center, uniting the two things. The whole system wouldn't work if it wasn't for you. You get it? Okay. Jay is asking, he says, are you saying emotional intelligence is our connection with Source? There are a lot of other connections with Source. Here's what I'm saying. Let me see if I can make it even clearer. We are not connected to Source when we're deep and entrenched in the ego child's mind. We've got energies that are in the way. We may find little things here and there and go, oh my God, what a magical day, oh my God, and we don't know what happened. That's what happened to me when I was younger. You know, I'd have once in a while a magical day where just I could seemingly do no wrong. And I had to get away from those days because the next day was just as dull and humdrum and full of mistakes as any other. And I had to ask myself, what's going on here? Now, I was lucky enough to also be in the theater. And it was really interesting. By the way, if you're seeing amateur theater, don't go on the second night. There's something called the second night syndrome. Second night syndrome is where everybody is really high and thrilled about opening on, I'll get to that in just a second, opening on opening night. And then they're all tired and they don't know anything about energy and they can't match that fabulous opening and possibly the standing ovation, and it's not good. You see, it is our energy. It is us. It's our perceptions. It's our awareness. It's our ability to tune into the moment to see how we feel. It's our unabashed sensitivity to energy and self. It's all of that that's really important. Before you scroll up and I lose you, our ego child mind holds you in bondage with the disconnection with source and creates the illusion of aloneness. Absolutely, it does. And Vicki has said, I'm on your website and I see facilitators, but I don't see anything specific about your programs. Vicki, I'm going to do something outrageous, and that is, if you will write me on my email, I am Martha Novak, Martha@marthanovak.com. That's my personal email. If you will write me, I'm going to give you my phone number, okay? And then you can call and we can have a conversation about it and about who would be in your best interest, okay? So there you go. Let's just have a quick conversation. Don't be afraid to do that. It's absolutely no, here's the thing about the facilitators that I have trained. And by the way, I've trained them they've studied with me. I think the one that studied least is about 16 years. And the ones that I've studied most are about 23 years. So they know what they're doing. Okay, sweetheart. They're really quite wonderful. So give me a call. This work, guys, I am trying my best to describe it. It's a very hard thing to describe. I am always interested in words. So I'm always going to try to find the words that explain what I am sensing in you and picking up about you and what Spirit is saying to me about you in our 2-hour sessions. Okay? I'm always doing that. However, do know that this is about your participation too, and awareness opening as you go. And it's very exciting. It's one of the most exciting things you'll ever do. Truly. So if you're interested, please write me on my email, and I will be delighted to communicate with anybody who's interested in our program. Okay. Now, what I wanted to go on and say is this. It's extremely important, guys. Thank you. It's extremely important for you to realize, going back to Jay's question, that this is a natural evolvement, but it's one that a lot of people don't take up. Why? Because they're afraid. Fear is the base of all the issues that we're talking about. Fear is why you think bad things are good and good things are bad. Fear is the base of it all. You know, all that anger that you feel, or may feel, or have felt at some point of your life, guess what the base of that is? It's fear. It's just a more acceptable form of fear to you. So you get mad, you see? Okay. It's really important for us to realize there are only two emotions in the world. There is fear, and there is love. Fear is the base of the ego child's mind, and love is the base of the highest self mind. I get really interested. I think I told you at the beginning of the show, I find it amusing when people stand there in front of me sometime and say, I don't have any issues. Not, I don't know what my issues are. I haven't discovered that yet. I haven't gone on the journey of self-awareness. They just say, I don't have any issues. And I know there's a great deal of shame down there because everybody does have issues. Every single one of those facilitators you see, and I have many more that are not on that facilitator list that are just as good and dear friends of mine and are in every class, but they don't want to do this work, right? They do other things. And, okay, Jay, I'll come right back to your question. And all of these people were so ashamed when they started out, when they started class. Oh my God, I'm going to have to reveal myself. Oh my God. And they were so nervous and they didn't reveal themselves. And now, after all these years, and they're in a room with a bunch of intuitives, everybody goes, oh, I've got that. Mine looks this way. It's delightful to see nobody hiding and everybody so honest. Now, Jay has asked, How do you feel when you reach the level of emotional intelligence? Are there levels of emotional intelligence? Well, they're levels of everything. I call them degrees because they're not levels you can define. I don't like these spiritual programs. For me, I don't like them, that always have to define things, always tell you the levels you're on, always put the angels above you, always give you a hierarchy. Hierarchies, guys, are based on the ego child's mind idea of, of there being different degrees of things. Degrees are fine, but they define them, and these are not defined. You see, in my book, the pebble in the yard is worth as much as I am. And it's doing the best job it can be, the pebble in the yard, as I'm trying to do the best job I can being who I am. That's the highest self, by the way. I didn't used to be able to reach that highest self years ago. I mean, we all start somewhere, right? So I started in the ego child's mind, and the first thing that I saw in myself was I was an actor and that my work was tight. Well, what was tight? It was fear. And I started working on myself. So another thing that amuses me is when I see somebody and I say, whoa, that sounds a little angry. Are you angry? And they say, I'm not angry. Really? Really? Come on, guys. Emotional honesty is really part of this. Now, going back to Jay's question, he's asking really good ones. You don't know and feel when you've reached emotional intelligence, just like you don't know and feel when you are in consciousness and enlightenment, because it doesn't matter. All that you know is that you have everything available to you that God put inside of you. You can create everything you want. You feel deeply. You know how to take care of that so that you don't burn out, you see. You want to help. You want to add value to the world in your way, but not to the detriment of self. So you it just doesn't matter anymore. It only matters to the ego that says you're not enough. Okay? You work on yourself because of one reason, and I say this to all of you. You work on yourself for one reason. Oh, you'll start out with a crappy reason like mine. I want my work to be looser. I want to be more, free. I don't want it to be so tight. That was a lousy reason. I soon saw within that first year of working on myself that I was there for a completely different reason. I was there for one reason. You ready? It's the right thing to do, to work on yourself. For you, it's the right thing to do. It might be the right thing to do for somebody to be a drug addict on the street and homeless. You cannot judge another's path that they're choosing. We can try to help them once, and if they turn away from it, it's okay. I mean, we'll pray for them, and we're sorry for that, but we can't be judgmental about this. It's the right thing to do for you if you choose to work on yourself. It's the right thing to do. That's the answer to every reason why the higher mind, the higher self, works and does anything and thinks anything and writes anything at all. It's the right thing to do. Okay? All right. So the levels of emotional intelligence are your degrees of self-awareness. Keep opening it up, keep opening it up, keep opening it up. Get really smart. Don't let yourself be deceived by the ego child's mind. You're going through levels of emotional intelligence, but who's tallying that? Boy, does that get you off the beam. Oh, and I see people like this who say, oh, I just hated that company I worked for. They were so unconscious. Really? Did you look at yourself, I want to say? Because that's a very unconscious thing to say. You see? Okay. we've got to, here is the irony. This is an esoteric teaching, isn't it? And what I mean by that is lessons are hidden under lessons, hidden under lessons. It's like, it's a gyre. It's always been the spiritual symbol for spirituality is this gyre. It's an esoteric world. And I think that the irony here is that you need to self-inspect without being self-absorbed. This is supposed to get you out of your self-absorption, because that's a classic symptom of the ego child's mind. But for you not to self-inspect and self-analyze and be self-aware and help other people and contribute what you are learning of yourself is a mistake. You've got to do that. So it sounds like it's the same thing, but it's not, because when we're in the ego child's mind, our motivation is very selfish. I want people to think I'm intelligent. I want people to think I'm adding value. You see, the facilitators you asked me about, Vicki, have been through a lot of things with me and personally, because I will challenge them if they're more interested in your money than they are in you. If you can't say, well, thank you, I think we're not really connecting really well, I think I'll slide to another facilitator here that might match me better. If they have any reaction at all, we work on that. This has got to be holding you in esteem and wanting what's best for you. So we work on those things. This is not like I've always been embarrassed about going to a hairdresser and I like what the other hairdresser is doing better. And you don't want to say, well, thank you very much, but I don't like what you're doing. I want to go to them. They're going to freak out. But it's the ego that makes you freak out, isn't it? They're not thinking of you. They're thinking of them. Okay. Well, I hope that answers your question, Jay. The levels of emotional intelligence are the degrees by which you raise your vibration as you work on yourself, but you're not going to think of that. You're just going to do the work because it's the right thing to do. Okay. So the last thing we talked about was self-regulation, and you can hear all about that. Vicki, thank you, darling. That's the sweetest thing I ever heard. I appreciate it with all my heart. I love hearing from you. Thank you. Okay. The third thing, now this is the new information, third thing to talk about, is social skills. I'm going to read what she said because I always kind of launch off from what people are saying. So here we go. She says, being able to interact well with others is another important aspect of emotional intelligence. Here I launch off. So what I find a lot of times, this is a common thing I find, is that everybody is self-protective. So they're not really connecting with anybody. Okay? A lot of your energies, possibly, I don't know you yourself until I get into your session, but if you had a rough childhood and you had to protect yourself from the bullies at school, or the mother or father who were bullies, or the sisters or brothers who were bullies, let me tell you, you're protecting yourself, and a lot of energy goes into that instead of into really caring about others. I teach people to have social skills, and one of the ways I do it is to say, okay, so you're giving a party at your house. You know, a lot of people have never given parties at your house. If that's you, give a party. Give a party. It's very important that you participate in life, guys. You can't do this work without changing. So if your whole life you've protected yourself from others and from being hurt, you're going to have to change that. It's time to do something different. So if you give a party and you see someone over in the corner who is not at all comfortable and doesn't know anybody and is just standing by themselves, are you going to let that happen? No. A loving host goes over and talks to that person and draws them out and says, let me get you a drink. Let me introduce you to this person or that person. Here's something I think you'll have in common. You're going to help them. Guys, it's just that way in life. You go to a party and you're the one feeling uncomfortable, but you're thinking all about you. You're not thinking about other people. You're not thinking about how to make them more comfortable. You're not thinking about how to add value to them and to their lives, to validate them, to hear their story. I think that is vitally important. You see? And if you're already doing that, good for you. Well, I got one sentence into her thing, didn't I? All right, here we go. Having strong social skills allows people to build meaningful relationships with other people and develop a stronger understanding of themselves and others. You remember what I said. There's something called the dependent personality. It means that you are predominantly thinking like a child, that ego child's mind is well in control. And these are people who don't initiate anything for themselves and need constant validation from the outside and that kind of thing. And these are people that often attach to other people, but don't drop the walls of protectiveness, protection, right, that they feel like they need to have, and connect with them, standing there naked and vulnerable, emotionally naked and vulnerable, I guess I should say, emotionally naked and vulnerable. Because the ego child's mind says if you do that, you're going to get the same thing you got with a child. As a child, somebody's going to hurt you. It's going to be horrible. You're going to be out of control. And it's also telling you something that's absolutely not true, which is you don't know how to handle that if that happens. Well, the whole reason you work with somebody like me and my team is that we tell you exactly how to make that work. If anybody crosses the boundary with you, you can step on them. Now, the interesting thing is, and I do want to put this on the table, is many times, I'm a corporate coach as well. I go into businesses and teach people how to interact in better ways and a lot more. I can't even begin to tell you how many CEOs have said to me, I can't be friends with my employees. And I say, well, you want to know the hard truth? You're a wannabe CEO. You're a wannabe authority, but you've never stepped into your own authority. Because if you've stepped into your own authority, nobody's going to mess with you, and you can be as friendly and kind as you can be. I did a test on this. I think it was for AT&T years ago. I had about, in this particular instance for this test, I had about 600 people in a hotel ballroom. And I had pre-chosen, with the CEO's help, who was thoroughly into this, the biggest man I could find who was a patsy and a people pleaser. Sweet as hell. Okay? But someone who was just a nice guy and didn't know anything about how to protect himself or anything. He didn't know anything about his own authority. And then there was, I remember this for a fact, there was a little Chinese girl. She had bones like I wish I had, real thin bones, and she was very thin, and she was perfectly beautiful, darling little angelic face, small in stature. And she was a ball buster in every sense of the word. She was not angry, but she knew where the boundaries were, right? Okay, Vicki says, well, that just hit hard. I've always been friends with my employees and stopped because company owners told me that I was not professional. But I always knew there was a line between friendship and, hang on a second, this truncates, professionalism. That's what's going on, darling. It's their insecurity that just stopped you from doing that. You see? Okay. So, I don't know what you're going to do about that and how good of friends they are because, if people come to me and pay for 2 hours, they're paying for my abject honesty. And I try to deliver it in the most loving way possible. If I am doing that in corporate America and have a day with them, I try to deliver it as lovingly as possible, but I do nobody any favors unless I tell the truth about what's happening energetically, okay? So you may not be able to say that to them, but I need for you to know. And you can continue to do that as long as you remain the authority, because let me finish the story, and I think this will really hit home even more. So we had this, forgive the word, but weak man. He had not in any way come near his authority as a person. Oh my God, he was huge in every way, lengthwise and widthwise. And this other little slight Chinese girl. So I asked them both to come up to the front of class, and I said, okay, now we have a scenario here. And I lined up the whole 600 people all the way, down the middle aisle in the ballroom and around the edges. And I said, okay, now this exercise is going to happen very fast, but I want you to meditate on this, because you have made a reservation to, and it's probably Valentine's Day. Let's make it Valentine's Day. And you have made a reservation at the best place for dinner that you can possibly afford, and you have been saving for this. So you can really give your person that you want to have, your significant other, a wonderful time. You're going to propose that night. This is a big damn deal, okay? It's got to be perfect. And you two get to the restaurant, and there's no reservation for you at all, and they're booked, and they can't do a thing about it. And you made that reservation 3 months ago. Okay? I want you to get in touch with all the feelings we talked about. What are the feelings that you'd feel? I'd be mad as hell. I'd be frustrated. I'd be, oh my God, I'd be rageful. I mean, this is just unheard of. How dare they, Good, good. That's right where I want you. Now, go to the person that's going to fix this. And I think all but 6 people clustered around the man. And 6 people clustered around this other woman. And I said, okay, all right, now let's sit down and let's talk about what just happened. Why did you choose him? The bottom line is you could upset him. She wasn't going to be upset. She was just going to go about fixing it or telling you there is absolutely nothing you can do, but I'll call around to another restaurant. She had the answers. But people don't want the answers. They want to be upset. That's the ego child's mind. Isn't that interesting? I think it's fascinating. So, being your own authority, stepping into that requires work. Nobody is born as the authority. Mindfulness and emotional intelligence are related. Do they work together, Jay? Well, everything works together, Jay. You know that. Mindfulness is the ability to stay in the moment, know how you feel, know what to do, all that kind of stuff. That's mindfulness. And certainly you're not going to be mindful without emotional intelligence, but you're not going to be mindful either without a certain amount of consciousness, which is even more than emotional intelligence. I hope that answers your question. They all work together, of course. Everything works together. Even your pain works together for your good. Do you understand that? Even your issues. The reason an issue is prominent right now is your ego child's mind and your highest self has been in agreement that this is the time. Isn't that something? It's an agreement. Okay. She goes on to say, true emotional understanding involves more than just understanding your own emotions and those of others. You also need to be able to put the information to work in your daily interactions and communications. And that's absolutely true. I've said there is communication that everybody talks about, and there's the art of communication. The art of communication being, you better damn well know who you're talking to, because not everybody can take you. That's the plain truth. Not everybody can take all of you. When you've got a friend that can, woo, you've got a true friend. But some people can only accept parts of us. And why isn't that all right? It certainly is. That doesn't mean that you can't be friends with them just because they can accept parts of you. That's silly. We must be grateful for and not judge the love that others have for us. And by the way, we must give it in return. In professional settings, she goes on to say, managers benefit by being able to build relationships and connections with employees. We've just discussed that. I told you what I thought about that. Workers benefit from being able to develop a strong rapport with leaders and co-workers. Guys, and I don't know why this is crossing my mind, but it is. Proprietariness just has to go. You work for a company that's bigger than you are, and it's not just about you. So the work that you do for them is not yours. Do you realize even legally, anything you produce for them is the company's. It's not yours. And yet we're so protective, and we get really mad when somebody else moves into our territory, and come on. Now, chaos can ensue when everybody doesn't know their protocol. I agree with that. But no proprietariness. That's ridiculous. That's the ego child's mind at play. Social skills she wants to present are active listening. That means staying there. Do you understand what active listening means? It means staying there. What happens, guys, energetically, it's very interesting. When we feel at all threatened, or even if something's a perceived threat, the human body is made a certain way that our energy moves either to the right side of us or to the left side of us. Why does it do that? Why do we move out of ourselves? We move out of ourselves because the left or right hemisphere has been triggered. So if I feel challenged as I'm writing something and I'm upset that I don't know what the next scene is and I don't know how it's going to go, I'm moving out on my left side because my right side has been thinking about that creatively. All right? Possibly. The left side is more analytical, and that could be, that wasn't a very good thing. But I remember seeing a man, this will explain it. An accountant was in one of my acting classes years ago. He was very good. He was very cute, adorable. He had had a horrible day. I don't remember what went wrong, but he'd been doing taxes all day, and not one of them went well. And he walked in the door, and the whole class, who I trained to see this kind of thing, went, "Oh my God, you're so out of your body on your right side." It's unbelievable, because his left brain was activated all day, you see. Analytical math, that kind of thinking. And after being in my acting class, I think he took both of them, so he had 4 hours of me that night. What was interesting is when we looked at him again, he was still out of his body because he'd had a traumatizing day, but he was out on the left side because we just stimulated his right brain for 4 hours, you see? So that's the reason you move out one way or another. You can actually see this with people, and I won't demonstrate it right now, but if you all are interested, bring it up in a private session. I'll be glad to talk to you about it. So for a threat or perceived threat, or us being in our ego child's mind where we never know what to say or do, by the way, I can prove that to you too. I would tell actors that before they came in and stood on their mark in front of a camera and did their scene with a reader, they had to be in the energy in which that character existed. Most scenes that I chose were characters in jeopardy in some way. So that was extremely high energy that was demanded of them. They have to have a performance energy anyway, even if they're playing somebody that's sad. You see, an actor is supposed to be looked at. And if you are having lower energy, I'm going to tell you, nobody sees you. You're invisible. Guys, there is something I don't talk about, and I'm going to talk about it right now because this is very important for some of you. I think you're really interested. There's a CD, a multiple CD on my website that's called the It series. It talks about this and so much more that make you it. Agents that I, at one time when I was doing a lot of acting, I knew them all, and I had the acting school and would send people, you know, that had gotten to a certain level of their work to them. And agents would always say, Martha, please send me somebody with it. And I'd just have fun with them, and I'd say, well, what is it? And they'd say, I don't know, but I'll recognize it when it comes in the door. That was one of those things that every single person said to me. They didn't know that they were saying that to me. It's like written across the sky like Surrender Dorothy, okay? That CD, those CDs, it's a package, have more in it that will tell you how to reach peak performance on demand, on command, and be highly visible in your life and succeed beyond your wildest expectations than anything I can think of. So please, please look at the It series and get that it's a multiple CD pack. I think there are 3 of them in that. That's why it's a little more, but not expensive. We try to keep everything as low as possible. You can find it on my website. Okay, so that's an extremely important thing, guys. You've got to be here to listen to what somebody is saying to you. A lot of people, as a defense, run ahead. They already know. By the way, it's a defense. Don't you dare fool yourself and say you're smarter than anybody else. That's bull. Okay? A defense is to run ahead, cut somebody off because you know what they're saying and it bores you to death, and have an answer ready or take the subject in a different direction. Guys, no, don't do that. If you are going to honor the person that you are with, business-wise, professionally, and as a friend, and certainly as an intimate, you stand there and be an active listener and just listen. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you so much. How wonderful that you know that. Okay. That's active listening. You can hear about that and a whole lot more, by the way, on that It series. She goes on to list verbal communication skills. I think that's very... Rhonda, you are darling. All of you all are admitting, I love that. I love that. Everybody saying, I do that. Oh my God. How wonderful. Isn't that great? Isn't that freedom? Why hide? Why be ashamed of anything? You've just done it as a protective mechanism. It means you were hurt when you were younger and you found out that that was the best way to do things. You could control things a little more that way, you see? But you don't need to do it anymore now. Vicki says, I know my issues. It's fixing them that kicks my butt. Well, don't worry about that, Vicki. Call me, okay? And Judy, don't worry. Don't worry. It is an easy fix. First of all, you have to see it real well. Thank you, LaRonda. You have to see it because, see, the whole thing about a show like this is I'm trying to get you to see yourselves because you know why you can keep doing what you're doing? You don't really see what you're doing. And you don't see the effect you're having energetically, you know. Every time you use an issue, every single time, you prove to yourself you need that protection. Every time you cut somebody off, you're proving to yourself it's not a safe world. Do you get that? And the issue becomes more entrenched. So you actually, and as you grow in wisdom, as you grow in age and power and wisdom, you're going, oh my God, I'm getting the opposite from what I got when I was a little girl or a little boy. It's actually doing something very damaging now. It's not the same at all. It doesn't protect me. It just makes me look bad. It just makes me look like I don't care. We can, if you all, LaRonda says, do you do group session on Zoom? As a matter of fact, LaRonda, I am always putting together classes, beginning classes, that are, in essence, group sessions. Now, I teach where you're going, but I'm also teaching how to get over your own issues. I'm challenging each of you as I get to know you. And the reason that I'm saying that is, I'm trying to take away certain things, but I've got to give you something before I take something away. You will not give it to me unless you do. So they're known as my classes. Those are group sessions, because if I am training you to do this well, you can't continue to have your issues. If you're going to be certified under my program, you can't work with the, and I don't know whether you have any interest in that, but you can't have any interest. So my interest is in healing the healers, you see? Okay? Good. Now, Jay says, when people wake to their own self-existence, self-reliance, self-preservation, self-motivation, self-love, oops, that disappeared. Okay, I think he's probably working on that. Yes, Vicki said, yes, we can do this together, Ronnie, and figure out who is really the boss. I love that, Vicki. If you all want to talk on this thing and say, please write me at this email number or something. And I've already given you my email, Martha at Novak, Novak.com. What we can do is put a group together. Absolutely. And it's always online. Guys, I want you to understand this, and I want you to have great confidence in this, because people have a hard time understanding this. If you are in front of me for a session, okay, and don't worry, you're not going to be in front of me for a session, but let's say you're in front of me for a session. I'm trying to find the words that tell you the energy that I'm moving and what I'm messing with. They call it mucking with your psyche. So that your behaviors change, so your attitude changes. Okay? That's very interesting. That's very exciting. Okay? I love having the words for that. But if you're in Paris, France, I can do the same thing. Why? Because I'm primarily working with energy. Energy is what's giving me the information, not what you look like, not anything else. I'm working with the energy and translating the energy for you. The energy that you are putting out, I'm the translator, and then I tell you what it is. And it's, I don't serve you if I tell you what you already know. What the highest compliment I can receive is, wow, you've just told me something I would never have thought of, but I sure do resonate with. It's true. Something inside of me is telling me it's true. That's what I try to do for you. And then we go on. Because there's a great, and this is what I was saying earlier about our radio show, one of the healing things that I rely on is chaos to order. I'm trying to give you some real highbrow information, challenge you about what you're doing like we've just done, so you can be highly aware of it, so you can challenge yourself in the world, because nobody changes without the system of chaos to order. Chaos to order. Now, my precious husband, when he came into my life a number of years ago, he's an engineer and a physicist, and he heard me lecture on chaos to order, and he said, and by the way, you can hear me lecture on chaos to order too. It's in my book, The Life You Want. It's also in some of the radio shows that we talked about under Creating the Life You Want. He said to me, Martha, you should tell everybody that anytime you go from chaos to order, whether it is forming new planets, whether it is a new baby in the house, or whether it's something engineering or physics, that you're working with physics or the physics of the body, it's going to take energy. It's going to take energy. Your awareness is energy. Your willingness to change is energy. And that's very important that you say, I am going to work on me in this aspect this week. This week, I am trying to only focus on what I'm doing here. I am not cutting people off. I'm going to actively listen. That's a marvelous thing for you to go into this week. I think it's great. There are so many misunderstandings like that. I remember a lawyer, I was doing a open enrollment seminar for lawyers. And I remember one man who said, now this was on a weekend, 3 days on a weekend, And I remember him saying earlier in the week, this happened early in the week to him, he said, oh, Martha, I haven't understood it until right now. But my secretary would come to the door and she would try to tell me something. And I would never look up from the computer. I would just answer her. Or I would never look up from what I was writing. I'd just answer her. I never really, ever connected and said what she was saying was important. Guys, this is part of, you're going to hear this in the It series. Energy moves around. This is a powerful thing. Please write it down. Energy moves around according to the emotion you're experiencing in the moment. Right now, my energy is on you. Right now, it's not. Right now, my energy's on the car over there. And so it's not on you. Now it's on you. Energy can go internally to my broken heart or my painful gut. And now it's on you again. Energy moves around according to the emotion we're experiencing. So he was one of the little sweet men I've ever known in my life, this lawyer. But she walked in Friday morning, threw a resume on his desk, said, "You're the biggest son of a bitch I've ever seen in my life, and I'm resigning. I don't ever want to work for you again. You're mean. No." And she walked out. And he didn't understand one thing until we talked about what we're talking about now. About where his energy was, what his intention was, acting, listening, being a good communicator. You see? Other skills. Nonverbal communication skills. What do you think I just taught you about energy moving around based on the emotional moment? Please get the It series. It goes into a great detail. That It series I did in front of a small group of people that were corporate. So I need for you to listen to that because it'll show you exactly how to do it. I'm demonstrating things all over the place on that, okay? And a lot more. The nonverbal language is not body language. The reason the body acts the way it does, if you're in touch with your body, as we should be, it's because the energy of the moment, the emotional moment, is having you act a certain way, okay? Place your energy in a certain way. That's why I could always tell an actor that was full of bull because they didn't have a placement for their energy. They just said a line, They just threw it away. And it was like, you don't know what you're talking about there because we always have a placement of energy, you see? Jay says, do not get sucked into the chaos energy that may be in your micro and macro world. And sends kisses. Thank you, Jay. And that's true. That's true. We've got to carry that authority inside us. Guys, it's more important than it's ever been. This is the age of individual consciousness. You'll read about that in The Life You Want, a book I wrote. This is the age of individual consciousness. And what you think now and what you believe now will create everything that you have, good and bad. It's time to wake up. It's time for this world society to wake up and to move past the fear and become more and more in the love-based energies. So that's the nonverbal communication skills. It's energy, guys. Yeah, it's energy. It isn't body language. Leadership and persuasiveness. You're not going to be a great leader unless you're the authority in your life. It's the only way you can lead. Lead well. Otherwise, you're just a wannabe leader. And we've seen that really doesn't work out well. Not in your best interest. All right. She said, oh, thank you, Jay. Thank you. I love having a conversation with you, too. You're asking such marvelous questions. Thank you so much. Now, she has some suggestions about how to improve social skills. And, of course, I have a few things to say about that. Oh, my word, we still are not going to finish today. Can you believe it? But I do think all this is important. How to improve social skills. She says, ask open-ended questions. I think that is such a good thing. You know, here's an open-ended question for you. That's great. You know, Jay, who was it? I hate to say that it was Woody Allen because he's so controversial, but he said that 80% of all success is just showing up. I think that's true. We've got to show up in our own lives, you know. Okay, ask open-ended questions. Here's an example of an open-ended question. How do you feel? Instead of, are you angry at me? How do you feel? Another open-ended question. What do you like to do at the gym? Close-ended question. How much do you bench press? Are you getting this? Now, some of you have heard me lecture, and you're going to hear all about this on the IT series, and that is the learning and communication sequence, which is integral to my program, and I think it's real important. Mover aspects. Reigning movers do better with specific questions. They don't like open-ended questions. They are not. They don't have that file system readily available. They're movers. They do things with their bodies and commit to action physically, not necessarily mentally first. So if there is a mover that is a reigning mover, and if they don't have a high reason or second, you'd be better to ask very specific questions. I can remember a friend of mine who was a radio personality, and that that gem thing that I just told you about was really funny. So she's in the parking lot. They're doing a remote, you know, interviewing people so that the public will hear this on the radio and come out and, you know, get the balloons and the party favors and stuff that all have the radio station on it too, you know, the logo. And so she was doing this, and she saw this great big hulking man walking through the parking lot, obviously real serious about what he did. Obviously, by the way, a reigning mover. And so she said, how do you feel about working out here? And he just couldn't answer. There was nothing but dead space. And on the radio, as you know, dead space is deadly. He could not answer. Had she said, how much do you bench press? He could have answered that. Like that. Okay? So you've got to know who you're talking to. The art of communication, again, I go back to that, is knowing who you're talking to. More people, Jay said, more people are waking up because of the survival mechanism being triggered. It can be overwhelming when they're in a deep coma. You're absolutely right. The food shortages, he said, yes, in quarantine, I think, you know, and that we have to do everything differently. Heck, I moved in the middle of COVID. Last summer, Michael and I moved from Atlanta to this house, and I couldn't count on anything. I couldn't count on boxes to be there when I needed them. I couldn't count on getting a U-Haul. I couldn't count on getting a pod. I couldn't count on anything. So, you know, it really took a lot of finagling and thinking ahead, you know, and talking to people who had better experiences someplace else. It's a creative world right now, guys. Okay. So that's open-ended questions. The second tip was find icebreakers that will help start conversations. You can actually find that on the internet. What are ice-breaking conversations? You know, I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. I love the writer Pat Conroy. I've always admired him a lot. Pat Conroy, when he did his therapy and stopped drinking, was really able to contact quite a depth of emotion. He was a feeler man, and he really is an inspiration, right? I was reared in a household where you suppressed emotion. I had to learn not to do that, right? Well, okay. So one of the things that used to aggravate people to death, particularly when he was doing a book signing and he had a long line of people coming through, is he liked to ask people, tell me your story. That's one of the nicest things you can do. Tell me about yourself. You look so interesting. I saw you do this or that. What? Tell me about you. Let's see what they say, right? But make it about them. I've noticed for years, and I challenged my beginning class when when we do this, it's like, tell me a story. Tell me a story that's all about you. Tell me the same story that's all about the situation. And tell me the same story that's all about somebody else in the story. And a lot of times people are real confused about that because we're used to, what? The ego child's mind. And making it all about us. But it's very important in a social interaction that you don't make it all about you. That you share so that they'll share so everybody feels comfortable. But it's a question of, being genuinely interested in others. You can't be genuinely interested in others if you're still protecting yourselves. Right? I know a lot of people who have very suppressed emotions that don't want to ask how the other person feels or don't want to hear personal information because they don't want to feel anything. You'll make me feel. That's not emotional maturity, guys. Because we should be feeling for others. We should be feeling for ourselves. We should be feeling for the world. And we should know also that God's right here in the middle of it all, and that's consciousness, okay? People do not want to challenge themselves. They just want to be controlled, Jay said. And that's true, but I think they also want to control, so, But there are subtle ways to do it, because we think of control as dominant. Sometimes control is just a simple interaction in how we do it, Okay. Her next tip is practice good eye contact. Yes, of course. Practice your social skills. Well, that goes without saying, doesn't it? Practice active listening. Yes. Mm-hmm. You understand that anxiety will separate you. Anxiety can be at the base of all things that you don't do well. It can be at the fact that you can't make eye contact. It can be the precipitator of not being able to know what to say. Here's what I was going to tell you about that. I don't know how I got off the beam here, but I've said that actors have got to be in the energy of what's really happening in the scene, okay? If they're enraged and the scene says, sweep the stuff off the table, in a rage, you better be in that energy. You better practice doing that before you get on a mark without a table, because that is the reality of the scene or not, is what the energy is doing. And the interesting thing about this is I would tell all the actors that, and some of them heard me and some of them did not. And when they got up there, they couldn't even remember their lines because they didn't learn them in the energy in which you existed, in which this character existed. So in lower energy, they don't remember their line. I mean, when I raise their energy, this is what I want to say. They learned it in ego child's mind energy. So I say, you're not in the energy of sweeping things off the table. So we set up a table, we put things on it. We say, get in the energy of this, sweep it off, do it again, raise your energy, get it up there where it's supposed to be. Now do it. They couldn't remember their lines. They didn't learn them. In the reality, the energetic reality of the scene. Well, the same thing goes on for you, guys. Are you in your best self? That's where you're going to have a great improvisational line. That's where you can, answer back quickly and well and energetically. Not in the ego child's mind that says, oh, something must be wrong with me. Oh my God, I've got to defend myself. I've got to protect myself. That's not in your best interest. The It series, guys, is something you need to hear. And we can talk about that if you want. If you have listened to it, by all means, we can talk about that anytime you want. Yeah, life is an improvisation. You understand? Oh, Vicky says, I'm chuckling. I got a dating app, and the guy said, the best thing about me is that I come with no emotional baggage. Now, that's hilarious. Ask him to define emotional baggage. Ask him to define game playing. See, everybody does it, but nobody defines it as that, right? Just be careful, my precious Vicky. Okay? It's very interesting. I think that's funny, quite frankly, and a little sad too. And Vicky said, I'm on the waiting list for improv right now. Yeah, you've done stand-up. Oh my God, Vicky, I wish I was in your city. I would love to see you. Maybe you will send me a video of it when next time you do that. She said, I just protected myself and swiped left. Oh, you are hilarious on the man. I think that's adorable. We're going to have fun with you, girlfriend. I can tell you that right now. Some other tips. Show interest in others. Well, I think I've said that. Watch your body language. We've talked about. Body language is just half the information at that. I love all these articles on body language. You know, oh, look at Prince Harry and Meghan's body language. Okay. Sweetie, it's what the energy is doing. It's not what the body is doing. Now, at its best, when you're fully connected, the energy should be propelling the body to reveal something, right? But some people are disconnected from it. If you're not real in touch with your physical body, you're disconnected from it. Have you seen speeches done by intelligent men and women who can be defined as a talking head? That's the body not connected to the whole experience, you see? By the way, that IT series is going to tell you how to do it. Okay. And I'm going to say again, be a great host. Be a great host. God gave you the ability to think of others and be a great host. There's plenty of time in this life to think of you. But when you're with another, what a wonderful gift it is to find out about others and draw them out and let them know they're safe with you without saying, you're safe with me. I get very, I'm very honored when you all say, we feel safe with you. And we can tell that you're the real thing in various words that you say to me to that effect. That isn't something that I was born doing. That's something that came out of my work to stand in front of you and let my nose run and have a bruise on my face. It's just the way things are today. And why can't we just be ourselves and live our authority every moment and appreciate everything and realize it's not going to come again and make it a good one? That's what you're all heading toward and may be there. Okay? Guys, I can't believe I've got 2 minutes left. So here's what I want to say. In the next 2 weeks, I will not be here. I'm so sorry. I thought we might be finished, but there's so much to say about the subject, isn't there? Not the least of which is I ramble. Sweeties, let's go on and go back into this. 90 seconds. It will be, let me see if I can give you a date for this when I will be back. Because I won't be here on the 3rd, and I won't be here on the 10th. I'll be back on the 17th. That is a very good date, by the way, the 17th of April. I just like the 17th. My husband was born on the 17th, and my dog was born on the 17th, not of March, different months. 60 seconds. Anyway, I'll see you back on the 17th, and we'll take this up where we left off, okay? I just think these details are important. Thank you so much, by the way, my darlings. Oh, yes, and please review other videos while I'm away. Judy just reminded us of that. They are free, okay? Please go on Blog Talk Radio, Facebook Live, and YouTube. And please get the word around about us. You know, you all are just marvelous at expanding our... thank you so much, loves. You're so good and wonderful about expanding our conscious community. It means the world to me. Thank you so much for doing so through social media, through, I think you can send this around on Blog Talk Radio, if I'm not mistaken. The shows. It means the world. I'm going to be praying for you right after this. I want you to know that, okay? And even though I'm talking my way out of this, out of the show. So God bless you. I'm going into a prayer now for all of you, that you may release what you can. And improvise, guys, in that moment. But you can do it well if you're in that highest self. You can't do it very well in the ego child's mind. I guarantee you, it's a different place energetically. Get that IT series too. That's real important for you. God bless you all, and stay safe and well and healthy out there. And I'll look forward to hearing from you on the email. I'll answer immediately. Okay. If I don't answer, it's because it's gotten lost in the ethers, which sometimes happens up here in the mountain. So write me back, because I'm somebody who writes back immediately. Okay. God bless all of you. God loves you through you. You know what that means now. So treat yourself well. Take care. Bye-bye.